Welcome to my channel. This is Oracle Ong, and this is a personal reading for John. So John reached out to me with, just simple questions about where should I go with love life, with career, and where to go, whether to go back home. So these are just very everyday questions, right? Um, and and so we'll look at his natal chart to explore what might be the latent influences. Why are all these questions coming up all at the same time? What might be those hidden influences that he should know about? What are the larger planetary forces at work that's making him confront all of these issues right now? And we'll also be drawing from tarot cards, from oracle cards, just to see how he can translate some of the lessons of the planets into practical, actionable lessons moving forward in his life. So John, your chart is super interesting. How freaky is it that we're both born on March 5, and so I feel like so spiritually connected to you as a fellow March 5. And I'm not sure whether you've done this before. It doesn't sound like you have, but your major forces are your sun sign is in Pisces, your moon is in Scorpio, and then your rising sign or the ascendant is Cancer. And that to me already indicates so much because all three of those are water signs. And water, of course, is the element that represents emotion, that represents depth of feelings, that represents connectedness, also intuition. And so I think that there are very kind of spiritual elements also to your chart. And I'm not sure whether you are on any spiritual journey at all, but I won't be surprised if at some point in your life it comes to the forefront so much more. So I prepared like a write-up for you, and I'll also be sending you this write-up in text. So I'll just read from some of it and riff off it at certain points. And then afterwards, I'll be drawing from the tarot and also from the oracle. Um, so I can see now why you've come to me for a reading. When you first messaged me your three giant questions, I was thinking, could he be one of those clients who thinks that astrology and tarot are there to answer like what should I do with my life, or predict what's about to come? So just to let you know that my approach to divination is less about prediction, but more about spiritual guidance, more about therapy. It's really opening up a space to explore what might be your latent gifts, what you were born into this life with, right? And so you come into this life with such innate gifts and skills and talents, some of which are more easily accessible than others. And astrology provides you that narrative framework to acknowledge that you are actually given so many hidden talents that will come super easily if you just know what they are. And they will also point you towards obstacles, risky aspects of your life, and I'll be talking about that in this reading. It also provides you a framework to explore what might be your lesson for this lifetime, what might be that big life lesson for you to acquire for this life, for you to move on and ascend into a higher being, higher aspect of yourself in your next lifetime. And so one part of your chart is about that, and I will end this part of the reading on that life lesson. So this framework will also emphasize agency, that you do have a choice, right? Like you have a choice what to do with these talents, how you use this knowledge moving forward, or perhaps you can explore other paths. So astrology is just there to tell you that we're given some tasks that we could be taking up, and this could bring us an easier path toward joy and fulfillment if we choose to take that path. And some other paths will just have just a little bit more friction to them. So anyway, we go back to like why you're here. And so you're here because of your Saturn return. So Saturn is a very slow moving planet. So of course, the Earth takes 365 days to orbit the Sun. Saturn takes 29 years, 29-ish years to do its orbit. And so when we're 29 years old, it goes back to its exact same spot at the time of our birth. And that's why the age of like 28, 29, 30, 31, those are like really important years in one's adulthood. That's where we're really asked to learn important life lessons that we would really need to acquire and to be skilled in for us to move forward and to move ahead. And then we're also asked to have another big life lesson um, right before our old age, like before we turn 60. There's another Saturn return. So just a little bit of background about Saturn return. This is called the cosmic rite of passage, and it's a very significant period in astrology. It's a time when major shit really happens in one's life. So this is the time when things that you've intentionally ignored or put off for another day will rear its ugly head to tell you that, girl, now's the time to pay attention. Now's the time to undergo the Saturnian lesson of discipline, of hard work, of having to really earn something for yourself, right? Like it's an earned kind of achievement that will be the theme of this next 2 to 3 years for you. So just to just to share my own experience. So Saturn return happened when I was in grad school. I was taking my PhD, and I was in the middle of grad school when my dad passed away, and it was a major time of having to rethink my commitment to academia, to the work that I was doing and really passionate about, but also having to be practical. I'm learning how to be financially independent and also learning how to be emotionally stable for me and my family, for my mom who'll be alone. And so it's a major event that I feel like, yeah, having gone through that period in my life, that the lessons that I learned during those few years are lessons that I still recall so vividly, right? Like I carry that in my heart forever now. And so this is a major period for you. And so like when you ask those questions about home and family and relationship, like you can't be any more Saturn return than that. Like it sounds like all of these things are coming all together. And so just a few notes here about dates. So Saturn moved to the sign of Aquarius right around March, sometime early March. And that means that the planet Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius in your chart. So it will take around 3 years for it to be transiting the sign of Aquarius. There's a period called the Saturn retrograde that it moves back to Capricorn, and that will happen later this year. So this is a dance, right? Like the next 2 to 3 years is like, so here's your big lesson, John. Are you ready? Are you ready to enroll? And then like you kind of are forced into it, and then perhaps maybe retreat a little bit back. This might be the theme around late 2020, like when it returns back to Capricorn, and then it moves back to Aquarius, and again forces you with again major challenges of real growing pains. So it's gonna ask you again, as the celestial taskmaster that Saturn is, like, are you sure? Is that your final answer? Did you really learn the lesson, the right lesson from this ordeal, John? Is this your final answer? And so it's going to take 3 years for this kind of conversation between you and Saturn. And so buckle up for this journey and make sure that you're centered, make sure that you're grounded, and that you're supported by your many friends. Again, the fact that there's so much water in your chart signifies that you're a people person, that you are there with others, you have a good support system with you, and that you're very deeply connected with the people in your life. So, again, just a bit more about Saturn in Aquarius. Astrologers are right now explaining a bit of like celestial poetry about this pandemic, with a reference to why is it occurring right now when Saturn is in Aquarius. So the theme here, it's about rethinking the structures that hold humanity together, that hold communities together. So previous times when Saturn was in Aquarius um, included the acceleration of the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech happened during a Saturn in Aquarius phase. The fall of Soviet Union around 1991, right, the time you were born. Also the invention of the internet, and so great technological innovations. So those tools in which people connect with one another, that's a Saturnian in Aquarius theme. Also about justice and like how to hold people together, how to relate with each other in a just and equitable way. Those are Saturnian in Aquarius themes. And so, just to drill that to your life, maybe have a think about um, how this theme might be manifesting in your own relationships, because it sounds like there's a lesson here about Saturn in Aquarius is about how do I connect meaningfully with others, how do I build a meaningful family or ecosystem in the household or with other people. How can I be honest and sincere with what I say? How can I make sure that when I connect with others, it's something that it's a way of going and reaching out to others that also respects my own boundaries. Saturn is a planet that teaches us a lot about discipline and boundaries and limits. And so, and I think that's why some of this pandemic, of course, there's themes here around like, what is it to, how is it to live with each other, right? Like, how is it to go outside, social distance, how to show solidarity with others, but through a respect for other people's distance, and what is the meaning of proper distance. So I think that's a question for you to engage with, and I wonder whether that theme of distance and boundaries and proper distance in relationships in particular will affect you in a particular way, in a specific way. So let's go through your major planets and the signs. So your sun is in Pisces, right? And how amazing that we're both March 5 babies. And I know 5 other March 5 babies. And it's so interesting that these March 5 friends of mine, our personalities are actually very different. So how we perform ourselves to others are quite different. But what's common among all of us is the depths of our feelings. Like when we feel something, we feel all the feels, right? Like it's super intense. Like it transforms us. So we feel the heights of ecstasy, the depths of depression. We're exposed to all of that, and we don't flinch from the whole range of emotions. Um, what's slightly different from with each March 5 friend that I know is so we're exposed to intensity. We love to dwell in intense feelings, and we're actually quite comfortable with that. But the difference of the different March 5 people I know just have different timelines in terms of how long can they spend dwelling in that intensity. So, what's powerful about Pisces is that we're always made fun of as a sign. Pisces is like the crybaby sign. It's the emotional sign. Like we cry over movies, over art, over pets. Certainly, other people suffering really breaks our heart like intensely. And of course, our own drama and tragedies are something that we, um, sometimes kind of indulge. But different March 5 people have different like timelines in terms of that indulgence. So Pisces is also strong in that we're a mutable sign that um, unlike other signs, we can adapt and we can be very flexible. And like when we actually acknowledge that something is really hurting us profoundly, and we can actually just choose to swim away. We can choose to just go and leave, and that's it. And bye, Felicia. Like we're done. We're so done. And so different March 5 people will just take their time, right? Like some will just have to repeat those lessons of like, self-hate, of like indulging in negativity for such a long period, while others are just a bit quicker on the uptake and like, okay, I'm gonna go now. So I wonder what stage, what kind of Pisces are you when it comes to that? And please let me know in terms of your ability to swim away from difficult situations. Pisces is the sign of compassion and imagination and dreams. It's your sun sign, but also the planet Mercury is also in your Pisces, and they're quite near each other, and they are called conjunct. Meaning they reinforce each other's powers. And let me tell you a little bit about Mercury. It's a planet of communication, of transportation, and work. And and of course, it's interesting that Mercury was moving around Pisces at the time when the pandemic was first coming to be known. And Mercury in Pisces is honestly not the most ideal um, movement, not the most ideal and harmonious kind of movement when we want to deal with facts, when we want to deal with science, when we want to deal with evidence and actionable work plan to address a public health crisis, right? And so themes of like fake news, conspiracy theory, that's very Mercury in Pisces sometimes. And so, how does that relate to your life? I wonder what happened in your life in the past few months, particularly from March till April, when Mercury was transiting Pisces. So that means that Mercury transiting in Pisces activates those same energies in your chart. And so the fact that Mercury is in Pisces in your chart means that you might have some obstacles or challenges when it comes to just being clear and direct with your own thoughts, with being specific with your own desires in particular, with what you really want. Are you couching things in indirect ways? Perhaps you are being asked to step up and to actually be assertive around what it is that you want, particularly when it comes to relationships, right? I'm also concerned that um, Neptune is right now in the sign of Pisces, and Neptune is the planet of illusion, also of dreams and spirituality. And I wonder that um, whether you're having some difficulty about really being honest with yourself about what's real and what's something that you're just for hoping to see or hoping to read out of somebody's communication or intentions. Are you overreading into things? Are you projecting onto other people? um, think carefully of what other people are saying, or actually saying, versus what you're hoping for out of that communication. Um, and I think this will be particularly salient when it comes to issues around anger, confrontation, and emotional outbursts. So while Mercury was in Pisces in March to April, right now Mars is in Pisces, and that activates this kind of aggressive kind of energy, but it's an aggression that is sometimes like so undirected, as again Pisces as represented by fish, right? Like it's not the most it can go into so many directions. And so I wonder whether this is something that you're struggling with at the moment, that you really want to move forward, you want to move ahead, but exactly which direction is forward and which direction is back, like you're not entirely clear. But certainly there's this kind of impulse coming out from within you that you want to go out and manifest something. You're just not entirely sure what it is yet. And the fact that Neptune is also there right now, that's creating a current block around intention, and a kind of fuzziness around what is true and what is just fantasy, what is just illusion. So let me know whether you're struggling with that, because I'm actually struggling with that right now. Now let's go on to your moon sign. So your moon sign is in Scorpio, and you were born. I checked at the time of your birth. You were born on a waning gibbous moon, and the waning gibbous moon in the sign of Scorpio is also known as the witch's moon. So that's a kind of archetype for those born under the Scorpio waning gibbous moon. It's the witch. So those born under the full moon of Scorpio is the priestess who is so connected to the divine realm. Scorpio is about death and rebirth, and so it is able to access such energies from a different dimension. But those in the waning gibbous moon, it's a disseminating phase, right? Like it's actually a kind of connectedness to other people that is more emphasized from the priestess archetype. And the witch is actually a very interesting archetype because it's actually quite an earthy archetype, which is a little bit different, right? Like you'd think Scorpio would be watery, but the witch here is obviously a woman of dark magic and dark energy. And Scorpio moon people are, again, we said March 5 are super intense, but Scorpio moon people are just super intense, and they are very comfortable in the darkness, and they can dwell in the darkness and are energized by it, right? Like when there's something that hurts them, or there's some injustice out in the world that really fires you up, that gives you that drive to see it corrected, and you take up that responsibility in you. And the witch is an interesting archetype because the witch is a healer, but it's a healer that uses alternative kinds of tools, right? The tools of dark magic and dark spirituality. And so it's drawn to people who are vulnerable, it's drawn to people who are suffering. Um, Um, and I think I would encourage you that as much as you are drawn to that darkness, make yourself empowered by that darkness in order to help others. Because the witch is also a healer, right? Like it uses its dark magic to help the poor in society, and also to get revenge at those who oppress those poor in society, right? And I think that's a very interesting archetype for you to think about, and I wonder how you translate that in your life. You told me about your profession, certainly a very respectable one, but also can be kind of dark, right? And so I don't think, and so I think try to balance some of the Scorpio moon darkness energy in you with some of your Piscean compassion, that other-centeredness and that desire to help the sufferers, right? Um, so I made notes here about don't give in to the dark side for the sake of personal empowerment or personal vendetta. Allow yourself space to play with with the dark side or with Slytherin energies if you're into Harry Potter. Um, Only play with that when you're being called actually to help others, to correct injustice around you. Scorpio moon people love to tend to their grudges like pets, and I'm not saying that is necessarily bad. Just don't be cruel about it. Don't make it all about your pride and your hurt ego. So channel your Piscean compassion to guide the darkness of your Scorpio moon to something that is meaningful and productive. So give in to your anger, as the Emperor in Star Wars would say, but also, speaking as your Piscean brother, don't give in to your anger only for self-empowerment, because to do so would only lead to your own undoing, that you will actually just fall down that rabbit hole, and it would be hard for you to get out of that, of your revenge fantasies, right? And Scorpio moon would be the sign that would be most susceptible to that kind of vicious cycles around revenge. So let me tell you about your rising sign or your ascendant in Cancer. Cancer is the mother archetype of the zodiac, also a water sign. And the rising sign is how you're being perceived by others. And this means that this is your image, your public performance, your role in the group that you're possibly expected to take in that setting. And Cancer is a powerful sign. I really get along with Cancers. And particularly for you, you need to pay attention to your Cancerian tendencies and archetypes, because the asteroid Chiron is in your Cancer, and this is in your first house of the self. And so any planets or asteroids in your first house are much more meaningful to your overall destiny. So this is actually quite unusual, right? So Chiron, the mythology of Chiron, Chiron is the wounded healer. And where it sits in your chart represents an aspect that might symbolize a hurt, an injury, like an emotional injury in your case, that will come in your lifetime. It's unusual that it's in your first house of self. So that means it's all the more important to your life journey. And the fact that it's in Cancer signifies to me that a great hurt might occur in a relational kind of way, that it's possibly coming out of a romantic relationship, or possibly even a relationship with your own mother, or possibly with your own relationship of being a mother yourself, right? Like a mother to your own tribe, to your own community. This is one that will carry one of the major lessons of your lifetime. Um, I'm just thinking here. So perhaps there will be a resentment around a burden here. Mothers, of course, are of course the unsung heroines, right? Most of the time. So perhaps there's a resentment about being asked, why am I being forced to take this emotional burden for you, my friends, or for you, my family? Perhaps there's a big unexpected heartbreak here that might be to come. And I think about this because your Chiron is opposed by the planet Uranus in the opposite side, direct opposite of your chart. And Uranus is the planet of innovation and sudden change. So to me, that's quite interesting that sudden change around relationships, and that's where your life lesson and hurt will come. So I don't know how that connects. Possibly it's about a heartbreak that might be unexpected. So another interpretation is you're pulled into two competing versions of love or connection. The Cancerian archetype of love, which is the mother, the earth mother, the one that provides and nurtures family, the one that carries other people's tears and emotions. While the Uranus is one that disrupts expectations, one that says, relationships don't have to be like that, right? Like you can have love in other alternative arrangements. So it could be about unconventional relationships, polyamorous relationships, kinky connections, and kinky kind of sex. So there's a theme here that there's a tension of what does family and love mean to you ultimately. Because in your lifetime, you'll be drawn to explore the range of your feelings and values around love, and also the range of sexual fetishes and kinks that might be available to you. So if you haven't explored that yet, you're perhaps it's still repressed, and you will be asked to revisit that at some point in your life. So I want to talk to you about your money and finances. I think you have a great story here around money. There's a possible opportunity here. Some minor challenges around money. The planet of Jupiter is in the second house of value, which suggests that you will make money easily. Jupiter is a planet of expansion. So the fact that it's in your second house of possessions means that you have the talent to be good with financial dealings, and other people will be attracted to you when it comes to business transactions. And it's interesting that planet Jupiter is in the sign of Leo, which is a very extravagant planet. So to me, it's just a tendency around extravagance that you might need some lessons in. Like, let me know whether that applies to you. I think it's quite interesting because your Jupiter is in the house of value, and your Saturn is in the opposite, direct opposite of Jupiter. And so these are two of the giant planets, right? One is expansion. Saturn is about lessons, discipline, boundaries, rules. And so there's a tension here, an interplay between the two largest influences and planets in your chart. One is asking you about, like, are you saving up money for the long term? And the fact that Saturn is also in a house that emphasizes legacy, that emphasize also in the house that is also about inheritance, and so it's about like money that's passed on and not just yours. That means that you actually have good talent dealing with other people's money, and I wonder whether that applies to your job. Just make sure you temper some of Leo's penchant for extravagance. Okay. I want to talk to you about anger and sex and assertiveness, because the planet Mars is in your 12th house of rebirth, and this is a very important house in the wheel the zodiac in your astrological chart, because this is the house of transformation and rebirth. And the fact that Mars, the planet of energy, assertiveness, vitality, is in the 12th house of, in a way, of death and rebirth. um, there's real tension here. My question to you is, how do you deal with secrets? Are you drawn to them? Do you carry them? Are you keen to uncover them? So again, going back to some of the themes of Scorpio Moon, there's an element here around secrets, resentments, being held back from the world, being discovered or exposed. You might have a fear of being exposed by others, or a repression when it comes to sexual desire and what you really, really want, or what you really want to experiment with. The fact that Mars is in your sign of Gemini um, is quite interesting, because the Gemini archetype is about words and communication and about play, and wit and witty wordplay. And so to me, Mars in Gemini suggests that you're super attracted to people who are very good with words and expression and sexting, and to you there's an element of fun when it comes to role play. Remember, Gemini is twins. That's the archetype, right? Like, you want to perform for others, and then you might get disappointed when, the adventure, the risk becomes something more ordinary and mundane. And so for me, I think you need to learn lessons around expressing what it is that you want to try, what you want to experiment with, and that you need to also be very careful with your words. Mars in Gemini, you're not entirely sure which twin is gonna come out to say the hurtful word, right? Like, is it the twin that is doesn't know how to edit? So there's themes here about, like, how is it to properly keep a secret? How is it to keep a secret that won't ruin you? Gemini and Mars, to me, there's a possible interpretation here around gaslighting. So just make sure that you're aware, right? Like, you're being sincere in communicating what you really, really need at a certain point from your partner. And so to me, that connects also to the where Neptune is in your chart, and about, like, what is it that you really want, and what is it that is just a projection. So a lesson there, a possible lesson there. So and I'm almost ending, and this is about your final your life lesson based on your astrological chart. So you're being asked right now to step up and learn lessons of how to connect with others in a sincere, meaningful way. One that honors the power and strength of your Scorpio moon, which is so intense in your chart, but guided by the altruism and the friendliness and care of Cancer. There's themes here about what can you do for others? What can you help build for others with grace and humility? So one aspect in your chart is called the North Node, and the North Node is the sign that carries, like, what is your life lesson for this lifetime that you need to acquire for you to ascend to the next life, for you to be prepared for the next life. And your North Node is in the sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn is the sign of the hardworking mountain goat that toils dutifully and quietly towards its long-term plans and ambitions. So Capricorn is also an earth sign, and you don't have that much earth in your chart. It's super watery, right? And so think about being practical, not being moved by emotions and just swept by emotions, as your chart indicates you have so much of. So think about what might be your real lessons of how to manage all these emotional pulls, all these tugs at your heartstring from others, which are the feelings that you really have for yourself and which are feelings that other people's have, right? And so knowing those boundaries will be important. And also, at the end of the day, what is it that I can build for myself? And then, what can I build for others? How can I make what I'm building meaningful and just? Because I think that's where some of your themes around Piscean compassion and the Scorpio witch energy of using dark magic for good will come to help you in this life. So that's my reading for your astrological chart. I'm not sure if you're into crystals. I don't assume that you are. If ever that you are, I thought about this crystal. This is a serpentine. And this is I think this is super relevant to you. Like when I was thinking about your chart, like what is the crystal that I want to show you, and like a crystal for you to have by the side of your bed, or just in the house, something that you might work with or put in your pocket. Like there's obviously smaller versions of the serpentine crystal. The serpentine crystal is activating both your third eye, which you have a lot of energies in as a Scorpio moon witch and as a Piscean sun. And at the same time, it's also connected to your heart and all that water in your chart, right? Like you're always helping others, you're always managing other people's business. And so this helps you with aligning your intuition with your heart, knowing how it is also to heal from injury and from emotional hurt because you're carrying so much, right? Like serpentine asks you to expose yourself to toxins so that you might become immune to them, so that you might gain strength to them. And that connects to your Scorpio themes of you're drawn to the dark side, but a dark that can only empower and make you transform to a better person. So now let's go on to your tarot reading. And God, you have such your questions are incredible, and I'm gonna rephrase some of them, and I'll begin by drawing cards. So first, I'll draw from tarot about like what are lessons am I wrapping up right now in my life? What are lessons that I'm being asked by Saturn to learn at the moment? So I'll begin with that question. And I'll draw another card of what might be hidden influences that you should know about. And then what might be things that you should need to release and let go of. Because Saturn, again, as a celestial taskmaster, you're being asked to cut off certain things that are not serving you anymore. So this is the Saturn lesson that one is a Cancer, another is a Leo. I just checked the guys that you were asking about, because the tarot has astrological connections after all. And so this is the first card that I drew, the question that I asked first was, what is a Saturnian lesson, right? Like the Saturn return lesson. What is it that you should learn right now? What are you being asked to absorb and wrap up? And this is strength. So before we get excited, I just want to say that strength is Leo. And so I wonder, we'll get to the relationship for later on. But so here, it's very interesting. How at the end of a Saturn return, this is who we become. This is what we acquire, right? This strength card is so beautiful, beautifully depicted, right? Like you see this young, vulnerable boy, kind of like very scantily clad, heightened vulnerability, right? Caressing a lion, of course, the symbol of ferocity, of courage, of vitality and aggression and leadership, right? And that's the Leo archetype of Leo is one of being proud, the leader of the pride, the king of Pride Rock, right? And so it's interesting here that strength is depicted both in its outer dimension, which is that of force, ferocity, but also in her grace and vulnerability. And that to me is such an important lesson of like where true courage stands. I mean, like you can be super right about something, but you can be such a dick, like for you to tell other people that you were so right all along. That perhaps how you can actually best serve others and honor that truth and honor your own truth is by having that stance of humility and openness rather than judging others. So to me, um, that is what's depicted by the strength card, and I think I love that this is a major arcana card. So compared to the other cards that I just pulled, they are not a major arcana. So this is a significant life event. This is a moment that really compels you to pay attention to this force. And we can only be encouraged that strength is the card that we pulled for the very first question of what's my Saturn return lesson. You're only being asked to level up. Whatever is being thrown at you at the moment is only going to make you stronger. Perhaps how to deal with some of these challenges might not be through the obvious expression of courage, but it might be through vulnerability, knowing when it is to hold back, when it is to actually channel that courage in a way that is connected with others. A strength connected to the Leo archetype is operating from the heart chakra, operating from, I want to empower people, I want to empower my community, my tribe, my pride. And it's not just about the ego level of pride, it's about the collective pride. And I go back to the green serpentine crystal, which is activating both the third eye chakra and the heart chakra as well. So whatever that you're going through in the Saturn period of the next 2 to 3 years, you have that courage in you. And just know when to come out as the lion, when to also hold back as that vulnerable boy that you are. So, what are the hidden influences that I should know about? And this is what came out. oops, this is the Ace of Pentacles, which is, so this is representing the earth element in the tarot. The Ace of Pentacles is a great card to receive when you're trying to manifest a project, when you're about to start something related to home, to earth, to creation, to getting your hands dirty with something. But before you have all the elements and all the tools available in you, you need to be thinking about it first, right? And I love how her eyes are closed. The coin, the pentacle, is right on her third eye, that before she's being asked to create. And of course, there's that earth kind of energy around her with flowers and bees, right? And so it's about fertility and it's about fecundity and creativity. Before she goes out there and starts creating things, she has to think about it first. She has to take time to pause and reflect on what it is that you really, really want and what energies you want to put out there in the world. And I find it interesting that this card came out in the reverse when I asked about what are the hidden influences that you should know about. And so for me, the fact that it's an ace, it's the number one in the suit of pentacles, means that you're just at the start of your journey here when it comes to what it is that you're trying to manifest. And to me, Pentacles refers more to your home aspect of your question, because Pentacles represents earth and home. That have you really thought things through? Are you projecting certain things? Going back to the themes that I mentioned earlier around Neptune and where it sits in your chart. So as you make this decision of what does home mean for me, where should I be going, I think it's important to align yourself with value. And what it is that you treasure, what it is that you really want from yourself. Because it's the fact that this came out in the reverse means that there's a hidden influence here, that you haven't done the real work of self-reflection, of meditation, of actually setting the right intention around this movement around your home. And I think it's mostly about that. And I was asking next about what should you be releasing. And it's so interesting that here we have another card that's also another ace. So the fact that we have two aces here suggests that there's a going back to basics. There's a going back to the beginning. There's a need to retrace certain steps, and swords is the suit, represents the mind. It represents communication. It represents expression. Also about career, particularly with your kind of career, I associate that with the suit of swords. So the fact that Ace of Swords comes about, I like that because this came out in the upright, this came out in the reverse. So the swords are finally helping you gain some clarity and break from this fog of confusion all around you. And I think for you, it's important to be trusting your intuition right now when it comes to the things that you need to release. I also recall in your chart those themes around being repressed, of like expressing what it is that you really want, and things that you feel resentful about. So for me, there might be something here around having to release that lack of precision when it comes to what it is that you desire. And so I'll be asking more questions now about your home, your love life, and your career, and how can you get guidance and clarity around those issues. And then I'll draw one final card around what action can you take moving forward. So let me see about home. You've got a Page of Wands. Page of Wands represents fire. That represents Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. I wonder whether any of those represent family members. Page of Wands goes back to like I drew Knight of Swords for your love life, and I will be drawing an oracle card for it in a bit. And when it comes to career, I got Nine of Swords. And you can see how anxious, depressed in her head she is about her work. And I want to draw cards from the astrological oracle deck just for all those three as well, just to see any kinds of planetary influences as well. First about home. Oh, I love that. Sorry. So, okay, let's go for your guidance around your home. So you've got Page of Swords and you've got Solar Revolution. Solar Eclipse Revolution. So, to me, you can't get any more literal here in terms of the fire symbolism. So again, going back to Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo energies. So those three elements and those three zodiac signs are being pronounced as you ask that question around home. I wonder whether any family members are involved here. Page of Wands represents like a young boy or a young girl, younger sister, younger brother. And Page of Wands is about this, plucky, excitable, energetic, inspiring kind of figure who's so eager to learn and so eager as a companion into a journey. So she's excited to take the first steps to a new journey. I think that's really interesting. And solar eclipse revolution here is that there's there's a desire to upend things. There's a desire to challenge existing structures and existing systems and expectations. I'm not entirely sure whether it was. So was it about going back home and staying where you are, and so to me that's interesting about like going back home or staying where you are, and then you've got a Page of Wands, and then you've got a solar eclipse revolution, because a page can represent like you kind of go back to the start. You go back to where you came from and assume this position. Certainly people will be seeing you as such. You're like the baby of the family once again, right? And so that can be the interpretation around them. And solar eclipse revolution It is about a major change, and also around having to revisit arrangements, but looking at it from a different perspective, right? Looking at it from, okay, I'm not going to fall back into the same set of to the same cycle or the same routines all over again. It's like I've evolved now. And so to me, like, if I if the question is about like how should I go about moving back home, and I can see these themes, it's about being humble as the page, but also knowing all the lessons and being confident of the lessons that you have gone through those cycles, you have gone through your orbits. And now it's about being reborn anew. Um, The next question was about guidance in my love life, and you've got a Knight of Swords, and you've got 11th house of friends, which is a very positive card. And I wonder, it doesn't help so much. I was hoping that this would signify the zodiac sign of one of your partners. Having said that, we have already drawn quite a number of cards here pertaining to Leo, especially, which strength conveys very strongly. Um, so 11th house of friends can also can also mean that the person that you might have a deeper friendship connection with, a deeper, um, just a deeper foundation and trust with, right? And that to me signifies 11th house energies. More like if I got 8th house energies, which is more sex, or 5th house energies, which is more play, then it might yeah, it might suggest that pick the partner that, you know, you're much more physically attracted to, if perhaps emotionally there's not much foundation yet in. But here it's about that deeper kind of friendship. Um, Interesting that you've got the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords. Guidance around your love life and Knight of Swords. So Knight of Swords is very interesting because so you can see here a lady, a knight who has sliced a butterfly perfectly in half, right? So the Knight of Swords, and Swords is the suit of communication and expression. And the Knight of Swords is one who fights for the truth. This represents the the judge, the lawyer, the arbiter, one who is not gonna mince words, just gonna be super direct about things, and can be quite hurtful. And I can see again, there's elements in your chart that suggest to me that you can be very, very sharp with your words. You're very playful with your words, but you can really cut people with them. So Knight of Swords to me conveys two things. One is to make sure you are aligned with the truth, and the Knight in this kind of spiritual kind of balance and alignment to me suggests that very powerfully, that you really need to be confronting what it is in front of you, and not just mirages, not just projections. You just have to be really honest with yourself, and once you are, make sure that you express yourself in that sincerity. Operate from your big heart chakra. You've got so much water in your chart. Make sure you channel that in a way that affirms the relationships that you've built and the connections that you treasure, and will always remember that. And when you decide to cut, as you cut the butterfly, it appears that you are going to have to make that cut at least with one person here. Make sure that you do it in a sincere way, in a way that is honest and true, and respectful, and be a Pisces about it and not be a Gemini who's unpredictable. Sorry, Geminis. And now, about your career, and you've got the Knight of Swords and the Nine of Swords. I used to get this card a lot last year. I was struggling with like some work stuff, and like some issues around anxiety and self-doubt. Like, why are people not citing me? Why are people not respecting my work? Or is it all in my head? Oh my god, like, is that just a projection? Oh, actually they really liked my work, and I was just seeking like affirmation, right? Like, Nine of Swords is about projection, anxiety, depression, sleepless nights, and a lot of it is just made up, to be honest. A lot of it is just you. A lot of it is just you, just stuck in your cycles of self-doubt. And so for you, um, around this, like, this is not a good card to be in. And how can you transcend that? This is what made me go, oh, this is Pisces, I believe. So again, as a fellow Pisces, as a fellow March 5, and you are in a profession that is about communication, that is about justice, that is about truth, that is about equality, right? Like, those are the signs of your profession. And Pisces is asking you that, are you serving other people? Are you there, making sure that you are doing it for the right reasons, and that your heart is in it? Pisces is a sign of self-undoing, that our greatest challenges are in overcoming our own tendencies to cut ourselves, to doubt ourselves, and to get in our head, to not know what it is that we want. And the Pisces that knows what she believes in, right? What she is committed to, um, that channels all of that psychic energies and incredible intuition and compassion into into a higher purpose, a purpose that will forever be nourishing, that will not, be a resource that will be depleted at some point. That's what's gonna push you. That's what's going to sustain you moving forward. So it's not the most direct way for me to answer your question around career, but it goes back to passion. We could have gotten Taurus. Taurus is a card that, for example, would have said stability. And therefore, that would mean stick to what is financially stable. And you've got so much money in your chart that's I'm jealous of, to be honest. But it's not asking you for that. It's saying Pisces, I believe. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that will nourish you and sustain you? Pisces in a profession um, that is just a day job for a Pisces really kills the Pisces. That's what would lead the Pisces to drugs, to addiction, to sex, to masturbation. You know. So I ask the card of what action should you be taking moving forward in this Saturn retrograde, and you got another um, what do you call it, major arcana card, the Lovers, which is this beautiful depiction. This is the Sasurai Bito Tarot, a modern interpretation, a little bit anime inspired. I love how you've got these two bodies just intermingled with each other. You don't know where the one starts and the other begins. They're just fused with each other. The Lovers is about, of course, soulmate energy. The Lovers is also about choice and higher purpose. It's about a soulmate energy with another person, but it's also about you committing yourself to higher purpose, committing to what is it that will sustain me forever. And I think that's a great question to be confronting with in Saturn retrograde. So I am encouraged that the cards that are in front of me are actually pretty positive cards, except for the Nine of Swords. The rest are super positive. So, for example, you know, like I could have drawn cards here that are like Death or Tower or Six of Cups or Three of Swords. Those would represent like heartbreak, unexpected event, or it could be tragedy befalling family or other people. I don't see any of that. So here it sounds like the dilemma is you. It's about your choices. It's about who you want to become, what you really believe in, what my purpose in life is, who should I commit to, and how can I tell that story in an honest way while confronting the absolute truth, without me needing to second guess everything. And what is it that energizes and inspires me, that gives me vitality and fiery energy? And how can I act with grace in front of great adversity? How can I channel my ferocity, my talents and skills, my so much abundant skills in your chart, but how to be humble about them, how to channel them in a way that is truly sweet and sustaining of other people, right? So I hope that helps. I ask you quite a few questions in this reading, and please get back to me whether this reading resonates. I'd also like to hear more from you in what you're going through. If you want clarification on any card or any aspect of your reading, just get in touch with me. And best of luck. Thank you.